Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the very first live video streaming brought to you by Altertox Academy. My name is Matteo, and I'm going to be your host for these videos. And I'm very, very happy to be here. It took quite a lot of work to bring these events together, and I'm very happy to see people connected with us already. Just a few words of introduction for those of you that are not familiar with us, or maybe because you are ended up on this video by chance, or you are my friend or a member of my family and I forced you to be here. Altertox Academy is a company where we focus mostly on two main passions that we have. We really like to talk about alternative methods to animal testing, and we also like to talk about science in a very broad way. One of our motto is to make people better scientists, and if you stick with me in these videos, in this series of videos, you will understand how. And when we talk about science, we like to talk about many different topics that might not be your mainstream topic. For example, science communication is one of them, and it's the topic of today. And I won't be alone doing this event, because mostly I'm not an expert in almost anything of what we're going to talk about. So I want to bring you experts, so people that have a lot of experience on the topic, in this case, science communication. And I will chat with them 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. Let's see how long will last. And I want to give you the chance as well to connect with them and with us. What we want to do with these videos is really to engage you in a discussion on the topic that we are very passionate about, and hopefully you are passionate about as well. I will leave in the link of the video our website, so you can see all the activities that we do if you are more interested. And you can, of course, following us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, even Twitch. We are streaming actually in every possible direction right now. So the way in which the event will go is simply a chat with the guest, but I will also ask you from time to time some questions, just to be sure that you are paying attention. And the way in which I'm going to do it is by using Slido, which is a software-based tool. Basically, you don't have to install anything. You simply can go on slido.com, which you can simply reach it easily by following this link, and you basically will see something like this, and you will be able to enter this numeric code on the upper part of the page. In a moment, I'm going to be able to do it. Yes. So in the upper part, you can enter the code here. So 255267. And once you do this, you will reach this page where you will be able to apply to the question that I will ask you from time to time. For now, there is nothing, but it will be populated in a moment. So with the technical aspect gone, I'd like to introduce you our guest. He has quite a lot of experience in science communication. He worked for 14 years in EU project focusing on communication and dissemination. He is also the responsible and coordinator of Pint of Science Belgium, which is the way in which we met. And Pint of Science, if we don't know, is an organization that focuses on helping scientists to bring their work to the general public. I will also link their website because they do also quite interesting work. And recently, he also co-founded his own company called Beyond Research, which helps organizations and institutions to fulfill their communication and dissemination needs, given his broad experience. So without further ado, I will present you and add to the stream, Guillaume. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Matteo. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
being here.
Accepting the invitation.
It's always a pleasure. I'm good. What about you?
I'm already breathless. I wasn't expecting doing the stream to be already so exhausting on my lungs, but I guess I don't exercise enough.
It's too early for a break, I'm afraid.
Yes. I'm going to just drink a little bit of water. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the introduction, by the way. I do have many hats, but just one hat that you haven't mentioned, and it's not directly linked to today's event, is that I'm also working now for the European Association of Mountains. So many hats. I love hats. But today, I'm just using my two hats as a Pint of Science and Beyond Research.
That's an interesting job as well. Maybe go there as well. Let's see. Okay, so what's your mood today?
Tired like a Monday, but excited like a Friday.
Cool. I like it. I'm going to write it down somewhere.
Coffee helps a lot.
Oh, yeah. I have some Nutella, but I might not use it. So the importance of science communication. That's how I decided to title this event, because I wanted to start, rather than what science communication and everything, rather on why we do science communication. I think is a more interesting question to start, and is really why we should bother doing science communication, why you bother doing science communication, and in general, why?
Because I had to be honest. When I started, and I'm not a researcher, I don't have any background in communication. Well, sorry, academic background, because now I do have practice, a lot of practice. No, I started because I had to. I've worked, as you said, in European funded projects, research projects, for many years, and there I was responsible for the communication and dissemination aspects of the project. So I had to learn by practice, and I've faced many challenges linked to communicating complex research work to audiences that might not be interested in hearing about it. So that's how I started, because I had to. And then with Pint of Science, I started Pint of Science because I liked it and because I was very interested to share the love, let's say. Even since I was a kid, I was always watching documentaries on TV and reading this magazine explaining how to go to the moon and so on. So Pint of Science was a way to make it a hobby, in addition to having it my full-time job at the time.
Okay, so you got the bug pretty early, I guess. Okay, I see.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
And I guess because here I see, okay, I understand why you would be interested in that, but you had quite of experience in working with different associations, I'm assuming, with all this work you did. So what's more your take on what they use? I mean, when I say they, it's a very broad term to say, funding association, private companies, research institutions.
Why do they do science communication? So
why do they do?
In my case, in the framework where I was working, it was because, again, they had to. It was part of the deal. When you have a contract with the European Commission to lead research projects, you have to communicate to the professional stakeholders, but also to the general public. And in some cases, it's obvious, because if you have a research project on smart cities, for example, energy solutions for cities, then of course it makes sense, and it's natural to talk to the citizens about it. But then you have a bit more, sometimes the research is a bit more niche. It's about the process more than the impact, and it gets a bit more tricky. And so we had to comply with the rules, but of course it was a way also to inspire and to communicate to people who might use the knowledge afterwards. So, science communication, people often think, it's for citizens to fight fake news and so on. So yes, of course. But it's also for the professional stakeholders, for the policymakers that need to be convinced of a given solution, or who need support in decision making. A lot of the research done by the EU or funded by the EU is actually to provide recommendations for policymakers. So turning the science into tools for policymakers. So that's very concrete, and it's maybe not what people think about when they think science communication. But as Pint of Science, we have the completely different view. Of course, scientists in Pint of Science, they communicate because they love to do it, and because they really want to share with society what they do and show that it has an impact. And the reason why it's right to do it, it's also because I mentioned fake news, but it's also because, as you know, if you open your smartphone and you have a news feed, it's a mess. You have a flow of content, which I suspect is sometimes randomly generated by a computer to give you so-called information on news that is fully unprocessed. And having science communication activities for scientists or for universities is a way to help people, to help them process this information and separate in their mind what is evidence-based information from what is basically crap or opinion. Sorry, that's not the same.
Technical term.
Yes.
But I mean, going in that direction, because you have these very two different aspects. You have the U project, or the very massively founded project, and Pint of Science on the other side. At the end of the day, I mean, at least in my experience with Altertox, we are also involved in many U projects. It's mostly scientists that you have to bring to the spotlight in a way or in another. But do you think there are many differences in the two aspects, in the two medium, let's say? Because for what I saw in the past, when we talk about science communication, when there are a lot of money involved, like U project, let's say, It's always about, okay, let's talk with scientists. Maybe we can talk with policymaker because, okay, they give us the money. But let's forget about the general public too much. While Pint of Science is very much, general public oriented.
Yes, and I think everything should be to some degree public oriented. It's not because at Altertox, I assume that you try to trigger change in maybe practices in the research world, maybe trigger some changes in the legislation. So you have specific objectives. You want some action done. So you're thinking, and naturally, why should we engage with the people? What are they going to do? But I think it's ethically, I think you have to. Also because policymakers, when they then try to go with you in your direction and implement the change that you want, then they have to explain it in a press conference sometimes. And people are going to ask questions like, why the hell do you do this? How does it make it better for me as a citizen? So that's important, not to forget the citizens, whatever you do, even if sometimes, and I've experienced it, sometimes it's really hard. And sometimes you think, what the hell am I going to tell to citizens about this? But you have to, even if it means going, once a year to a Pint of Science event in the bar and just talk for 20 minutes about it, just do it. Just do it. It's the right thing to do.
And you think it's also the view of, scientists and the people working in this funding agency, or they have a different take? They might.
No, I mean, talking about European funded project, and I'm sure it's the same at national level. It's a requirement of the EU to do it, not just for the sake of having a requirement, but for the sake of improving the image of the European Commission, the European Union in general, which is not always so positive, in the light of all the billions of euros that are spent in research, innovation, and many other programs. So it's important for them to get some positive image out of it, which is fair. I would think in the same way. And again, it's positive for society to have this kind of exercise. It's not like there is ideology police of the commission holding your hand when you write communication documents for the people. They let you do it the way you want to do it. All it matters is that people know that it's a project that the EU has invested in because they believe in this priority or this priority. So it's important to them as well. Yes, definitely.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I will also ask you maybe of the people that are listening to us. I will actually open for the first question, which is exactly the same that I actually asked you, which is what's the importance of science communication for you specifically? And we listed a number of possibilities. If it's not the one that you like the most is not there, you can just put it in the comment and we will discuss it as well. We're just trying to put it on the screen as well so you can see. But the reason why I went for this question is because, as you said, we want to have also the citizen involved as much as possible in this project or in science in general. I guess that's one of the goals. And as I said, this impression that I had is that when we have this massive funded project, it's a bit difficult to do it. And is going back to one of the reasons that I believe is important for doing science communication, which is building trust. Building trust with whoever. I mean, general public is one direction, but policymaker is another. And in general, building trust among them. Because I saw a few statistics that say that most of the people do believe in science, or whatever it means, as long as you just have a really clear-cut question. It's like, do you believe in fighting cancer? Yes, I do, of course. Do you believe in genetically modify an animal to harvest the heart? It's already a little bit more difficult. And do you think there is the advantage and how you could actually bring the citizen and the scientist together in this kind of more sensitive issues, which also alternative methods to animal testing are at the end?
At the end of the day, it depends really how you phrase the question. Obviously, if you say, are you in favor of having a pig's heart in your heart because you're sick, then the answer is going to be different. It's all about context. And one of the challenges of science communication and communication in general is storytelling, putting it in a context and giving a meaning to something, in meaning in the sense that people can relate to the story and can really feel and understand what it means to them, what it means for maybe their family or neighbors. So really trying to break the complexity down, and I don't think it's something that you can really reflect through this kind of simple surveys with people. I mean, sure, you can identify some trends, but it doesn't mean there is a real problem there. Again, if you have a nice story to tell about heart transplants, I think you're just going to have completely different results.
Okay, so it's just a matter of how you phrase it, of course. Yeah, it's just a matter of question. And since you have such a long history of experience with that, did you see a change?
I feel old now that you say that. I'm not even 40. Come on, I'm not 40.
14 years of experience in one specific field is more than my entire professional career.
I'm not judging. Sorry, ask again.
Okay, from when you started to now, did you see a change in the way in which communication is put forward, both from the point of this institution that tell you have to do communication, and the point of the people doing communication?
Okay, so in second part, I'm not sure I have enough experience because I've started Pint of Science in 2017, so it's still recent. But definitely from the point of view of these big European projects, there was a shift. I started in the old research program FP6 and FP7, for those who know this kind of stuff. So a long time ago, 10 years ago, the focus was not so much put on impact on society, unless it was a project specifically for society. So the focus was more on how to bring the research to the market and how to engage with the professional stakeholders and so on. And slowly, there was a clear shift towards more engagement of all stakeholders, including the general public. So definitely there was an increase, and I recall that a lot of people were lagging behind. The people practicing these services of communicating and disseminating results, we had to catch up with this new trend. We had to get new skills. We had to find new people to partner with to bring the expertise on stakeholder engagement activities, how to co-create, to engage people in co-creation activities. I mean, it was a very, very positive shift, evolution, let's say, not a shift, but then a very good evolution that still continues now with the new program.
Yeah, I feel in a way as well. I saw that indeed this coming a little bit more mainstream. And we can maybe have a look at what the people said about what we asked them. And, we have different possibilities that were listed. Again, might not be that everything is there. But indeed, building trust is one of the ones that seems to be more chosen by the people at home. Yes, indeed. And I believe this is really the starting point, because you have to build in trust to actually go a little bit beyond. But
it's sad in a way, because it shouldn't be an issue. It should already be there. It should already be there, and then you can build on your communication. So it's sad, but it's interesting that it's very true. It's a starting point, and if you communicate and the organization that you represent does not have a lot of trust or doesn't have a good image, then it's going to be complicated to communicate. So that's for sure. But it's still sad to see this.
But I guess it's interesting also that apart from showing off, that I really like it, that not many people use, influence decision makers. I guess there is the view that probably science communication is not really useful in that sense. There is maybe a gap to go from I'm going to tell you what I'm doing to influencing your decision.
Yes, but it's because people think of science communication as something very public, like what is in the public place, and you communicate for people in the media and everything. But at some point, when you think of the pandemic that we have now, at some point, someone had to pitch the problem and some solutions to the decision makers who have no clue about it. And these people, they were scientists. Some scientists had to be able to explain in simple terms to the ministers how to go about it. So in a way, they had to learn how to express complex ideas in a simple way. That still counts as science communication in my view, or at least it requires similar skills.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they try to do communication, is true. I guess most of the time they didn't put the expert doing it. I can see the example of Italy was not really the best ever, but They tried. Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
maybe, I mean, I don't know in France or in Belgium. Honestly, I didn't follow it that much, even though I live in there. But
Oh, but these are different exercises. I mean, the scientists, they have to communicate with the policymakers, but then the policymakers in this situation, I think it makes sense also that they communicate with their own words to the public because that's their job. So,
yes.
but I meant just the part between the scientists advising the
Mhm.
policymakers still requires some skills in, just not sending a lot of data and hoping for the best that they will take a good decision, but just I assume they had to put things in context and in simple terms, and that's all about science communication.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe going back to, you say, okay, we have to engage as many people when the way in which the communication wave, let's say, started and is now coming. So you have to try to engage more people, more professional figures, I guess. I'm gonna put it like that. And in my experience, I have a very academic experience, and I'm coming from academia, and then I did communication. And I always had this question: doing science communication, do you need a not a professional, hard science background to go in that direction? Because I know that you did another path. Did you ever feel that you were lacking something in that sense?
No, I felt it was an advantage. I'm the like the canary in the mine. If you can think the image, you're in the mine, and I'm the idiot. And if I don't understand what the scientists are telling me, they're not telling me properly.
Okay.
So we have to go back to the drawing board and together come up with a message, with a story, and it helps. So I hope it helps to have someone who is a bit more neutral, who doesn't pay that much attention to how they got to their conclusion, but more about why they had to work on that and what it means to the stakeholders that we have to engage with. So I think there is complementarity there. I'm not saying that scientists alone cannot communicate. That would be a lie. Of course, everybody can do it with skills and experience, but it's not a requirement, I think. On the other way, developing entire science communication strategies without involving very closely the scientists wouldn't make sense either. So, I think the two things have to get there. Also, as a practitioner, when I do science communication, I shouldn't do it alone. If I need to reach out to a specific group of people, I might need or I might want to collaborate with actors from the cultural sector who have an audience, who have a different way of engaging and different type of language. Artists, like people who have theater troupes or singers. So it's all about finding the skill that you need to serve your message to the right audience.
And in your experience at the beginning in the EU project, could you do that easily?
No.
Reaching to no.
No, and I'm not blaming the EU on this.
I always say EU, and it seems that I am against the EU. It's just because it's easy to identify someone, give him money. But
yeah,
you can
also it's
imagine
easier for me.
agency.
It's my experience. No. I mean, it was not easy because first, it's difficult to plan these things 2 years before you have to implement. Because as you know, when you submit a proposal for EU funding, you submit maybe in February now, you have the answer in 6 months, and you have results 2 years later, and then you have to think of communicating. But you have to plan your budget and activities in the proposal. And so in sometimes you kind of trap yourself in some boxes of activities that you have to do and for which you have budget. And so you might trap yourself into not having the budget to do what you want to do at the end of the project within the time frame of the project. It's also something that people can improve. So over the years, you can find ways of being a bit more creative and open in the way that you explain things. For example, instead of saying, I will do 2 events and 1 webinar online, you can say that you will have a webinar series, but you don't tell exactly what topic. You say that you will have different topics covering this and this and this stakeholders. You don't make promises on when you do them. You can maybe list potential people with whom you want to collaborate. So of course, you don't always have to do everything yourself. And this is something that it's not always easy to conceptualize when you write a proposal, also because often you lack time, you have a deadline, so you have to rush to deliver. But it's possible. So again, I'm not blaming the EU, but because you have this framework of a project with budget and time and deliverables and so on, you have to be careful to leave room for creativity and flexibility when you start writing the proposal. So that's possible.
Oh, I agree. I will actually ask also the people at home what they think about it, of the necessity of or not to have a hard training in science to do science communication. I mean, it's something that I always intrigued, because maybe I can say from my side that by doing science communication with a PhD behind, even though the PhD most of the time is not useful for understanding what someone else is doing scientifically, because the topic is completely different, I realized that sometimes the scientists are a little bit more at ease when they realize, like, you got a PhD?
Well, you speak the same language in a way.
Yeah, I mean...
And you went through the same things.
I guess so. I don't know why, because then, they tell me, I do this, and it's like, I have no idea what they're talking about. But still...
No, but it's the same when I talk to people working without a PhD, but working on EU project, and we are like complaining about you guys scientists not understanding why we have to communicate. It's the same everywhere. People have common experiences, and it creates some trust between them.
Now, I don't want to put myself in the scientist categories, because I don't think I am one of them anymore, but I see what you mean, yes. But maybe with Pint of Science, you were able to do a little bit more experimentation. And we can even take actually one question from the audience that could be linked to that. Because I guess with the more bigger project is a bit difficult, but maybe with Pint of Science, if you are able to try to build some of these projects using also the citizens as, lab caveat.
You mean Pint of Science as a way to
or
engage?
Whatever experience you have in general. I think it's easier with Pint of Science going in that direction, but if you manage to do it also in your project, even better.
No, I have to admit we don't experiment much with Pint of Science actually, because we don't have any problem communicating with Pint of Science, and the main reason is because we pick the topics that we want to talk about, so we don't have any pressure to have to engage more in different ways, because otherwise we're not getting our audience. We have our audience, people want to have a good time, and we don't have much pressure. So no, I'm sorry to say with Pint we don't experiment that much.
Okay, but you know in general if there are activities or situation that about when the use of citizen in science, let's say, can be used or was used, to echo the message of the project or the activity in general.
Yeah, so not in hard science, but there are a lot of co-creation initiatives to develop, for example, sustainable urban strategies. So this is not strictly hard science, it's sometimes innovation, and it's social innovation. And whenever you engage or you involve citizens, of course, in any co-creative process, of course, it's much better in terms of impact. People actually give you input that is useful, and they're not just passively getting the data and then your job is done. They give you data, and then you have to process what they tell you. And it creates a connection that will definitely increase acceptability of whatever then you want to implement. So there is no question that engaging, and even then citizen science is the ultimate engagement in science. So it's the ultimate way of engaging and communicating research. It's perfect, but it can't work everywhere. You can't do citizen science on any topic.
Yeah, no, I agree, definitely.
I assume. I never really thought hard about that, but I'm assuming.
I guess you can try. Then I don't know how it is going to be. But, I'm mostly thinking about it because indeed of this, as I was saying before, more sensitive topic. Alternative to animal testing might be one of the reasons. And I don't see, for example, in that case, a lot of engagement with the general public or citizen, let's say. But also other, for example, you can imagine the genetic engineering, which might be something in the future. I don't know if you are aware if there are initiatives in that sense that go in that direction.
Not really, but do you do citizen science for animal testing?
No, indeed, we would like to do it, but it's very hard, as you were saying. A new project, especially or big project, you have to really specify what you are going to do, which is very, very hard to do it in advance.
Yeah. So you were hoping that I tell you how to do it?
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
One of the reasons why I invited you.
Such a disappointment I am. But
no,
I will think about it, and I will get back to you another day with concrete solutions and a plan. Don't worry.
Cool. I'm counting on it. But we can use it maybe to jump on the next part, because we
Sure.
kind of touched about it a little bit here and there. But which are the why it's so hard to do this? Why it's so hard to do communication? Why is not so straightforward? And we saw it already a lot with the COVID pandemic, that if the messages were completely overlapping each other, there was no clarity. It was very difficult to give your message across. But also in general, why we struggle sometimes to do this?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes is the operative word here, because I don't think by default science communication is hard, and it depends on the framework in which you have to make it happen. So again, Pint of Science for me is an example of science communication that is done easily, because we operate with near zero budget, so we don't have anyone on our back telling us how to spend the money and when. We choose the topics that we want to talk about. We bring people into a bar, so whatever happens in terms of content, if the content is bad, that they are still there having a drink. They haven't lost their evening. They're not going to sue you because you said something wrong. They're just open-minded, relaxed, and the scientists also, their careers is not at stake. They come, they talk about their work, and the worst that can happen is that they lack social skills, and maybe the presentation is not so lively and interesting. But so what? Then you have another presentation, you have another drink, and you move on. It's not a problem. It's a problem if you have to do it with a specific objective, with specific target groups, with a specific budget, in a project, in a specific regions, specific age groups, I don't know. But this is when it gets hard. And this is why it was much harder, of course, to do it in European projects where you have a lot of money than in Pint of Science, where you don't have money, but you have no problem organizing hundreds of events around the world. I mean, if people don't know what Pint of Science is, check it out. I mean, it's in 29 countries, and I'm pretty sure it's the biggest science festival in the world. Before the pandemic, I think we had more than 100,000 participants worldwide. Not so much in Belgium, as you can guess, but it works. So it gets hard when you have constraints.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And even science and cocktails, we are forgetting about those because we're also in Belgium, but they are a bit competitors of Pint of Science.
No, we're friends. We're all friends. It's a big family. We work also with not Mind the Gap, with On the Moon again. Not in Belgium yet. It's an initiative where people can share telescopes and look at the stars. We love to collaborate with anyone who wants to collaborate with us, whether it is Sound of Science, which is a music and science festival in Belgium.
I didn't know about this.
Or science. You don't know about
Sound of Science? No, I missed it.
Look it up. It's really nice. We work with science festivals in different regions. So we've done, for example, I Love Science Festival for children in Brussels. So yeah, we're not competing. There is room for everybody, and everybody's friends.
We can also check what the people replied to the questions before, and indeed to see if they agree with you or not. Kind of. No, well, it is useful.
I disagree with 33% of the responders. Whoever they are, I will get your names and I will send you strongly worded emails.
No, but I mean, I guess it's connected to what you just said. It's just one less barrier that you have to crack to get the message through, even though you might have other barriers to crack to go in the other direction. But that was mostly for Pint of Science. And beyond the research, you had other type of experience in that sense, or maybe in between?
Yeah, I mean, we are very new. I mean, we were created in 2020, so not much was happening. But the idea of creating Beyond Research, and it's not really a company, as you said, it's like another non-profit association, which I have co-founded with Elodie Chabrol, who is the international director of Pint of Science, and who also was a scientist before moving to the science communication side of things. And the idea is to bridge the gap between the two things that we've been talking about, between the grassroots initiatives or the practitioners on the ground who have access to an audience, who have a community of followers and who have positive images. They have a neutral image of how they handle science, and to connect this to the more institutional projects. So where they have all these constraints. of time and budget and everything. So we're trying to bring the two worlds together, try to get them to understand each other in terms of what are the constraints of each, and how can a project can benefit from collaborating with a science festival in a small region in Europe, because they have to talk to people in a specific area, and how the festivals can also get interesting content from brand new research that is coming out of European projects. So this is what we're trying to do. So we are trying to then mix the classic communication and dissemination activities of European projects that are required, but also be an interface with the local players, so the practitioners on the ground. And this is also, in a very pragmatic way, it's a way to demonstrate a real and actual impact on the communication activities. It's always a challenge as a project. You can do as many social media activities as you want. How are you really going to justify that you have reached a specific number of people? How do you know that the brain of the people was connected to your message at any point in time and not just scrolling through a random feed on Twitter? When you get people sitting in a festival, whether it is our festival or any other festival, even the European Researchers' Night, by the way, which is very popular among all populations, there you have humans really listening to what you have to say. They are engaging sometimes in experiments. So the message really goes through, and it's easier also to justify that there was indeed an impact with citizens. So that's the challenge of Beyond Research, trying to use the language of projects, but still connect it to somehow the more improvised or on the ground practice of communication.
And about actually in the ground, because we had some question on LinkedIn that I couldn't see actually from StreamYard, but did you know someone that do science communication on TikTok?
Not yet.
No?
I'm sure there are.
I'm sure they are as well.
We were looking into with Elodie. We are looking into podcasts. I mean, she's doing a couple of podcasts herself. We are working with a YouTuber from France who is doing popular science videos, very very funny with costumes and everything, but no TikTok yet. No.
Okay, but so you try to bring people from the web. Let's call it the web, even though
we're trying to work with different media that we will never be able to manage in the same way. I mean, you can't just create a YouTube channel out of thin air just for a project that will last 2 years. I mean, these people have been working for years to get there. So I would rather, try to collaborate with an existing influencer than to try to become one.
And did you have any problem in creating this event? I mean, you only spoke with the people on the web and you did something with them, or you tried to bring them to someone else as well, to connect them with someone else?
No, we're not doing that yet. The idea with Beyond Research would be that we are the interface with them to keep it simple for the project itself. I can't imagine a project coordinator would be happy if I go to them and I say, okay, this is a list of 20 different influencers or different media. Please give them a call and they will tell you what they need. I mean, it's never going to happen. No.
You think it's not going to happen?
Maybe one or two coordinators will do that, but it's not efficient, to say the least. I would rather think that it's important to whoever, not specific us, but whoever is responsible for communication and dissemination, they should act as an interface with different actors and make room for this kind of collaborations, and not make things more complicated by bringing all these people directly in the projects. Just use them as leverage and find a space where everybody's happy with this collaboration.
So you mean that there should be some kind of interpreter in the middle, some mediator to help to connect, bridge the walls, which are very, very hard to.
Yes, but for example, if I wanted to, if I have a project on a new type of filtering system for ethanol, whatever, for biofuel, I'm not going to go to my Pint of Science friends in Germany and say, well, take my project coordinator and he was going to present the project. There is no way. I would have to find someone to talk about biofuels in general and talk about the challenges for society of using these biofuels. You have to not adapt only the message, but to filter it. So again, if you go to an influencer, you have to follow their format, because this is the format that has brought them the audience. So they're not going to work the way you want. you have to adapt to the way they work. So that's an extra difficulty, but I think it's worth investing if you really want to reach out to these people.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd love to see some new project in which they, put a YouTuber on the main web page. Would be a first.
Me too.
I mean, maybe in the future, you never know. You never know. With the Green Deal, maybe they can put it in the mandatory requirement. We have another question actually from LinkedIn that I didn't see it before, from Georgia, that asks, how do you see overproduction of content, and how too much content can be counterproductive or is counterproductive?
That's a very good question. As I was saying, we already have an overload of content, not scientific content specifically, but an overload, like 10 different articles on the same topic. So I don't have a definitive answer to this, but I would say that it's important to be effective in the communication and not communicate more than what is necessary. So if you have to communicate in a media that is already suffering some overload, I wouldn't try to compete in quantity, but I would compete on quality, and then maybe find other ways. So when I hear of a lot of content, to be honest, it's online, okay? But there are other ways to engage with people, and this is maybe where it's a bit less crowded. Again, let's try to invest the realm of culture, which is very mainstream, and people accept to be exposed to culture at any opportunity possible because it's entertainment for them. So they go to the movies, they go to the theater. This is a different world. We can try to invest a little bit this world in the same way that, as I was mentioning before, the people organizing the Sound of Science Festival, they just thought, okay, people love to go to a music festival, let's have one, but also with scientists and activities for children, so you can go there with your family. And the recipe works. It's in Flanders, and it works. They've done that for a few years. So don't get stuck on the problem of a lot of content. This is online. Online is a mess. So when you're online, be effective, quality over quantity, but try to go offline.
Okay, but maybe because it's not, I would say it's not just a problem of overloading of information. It can be overloading of information when you have a lot of information, let's say, to choose from, but sometimes you can have competing information, maybe on the same subject, especially if we go back to this sensitive, more sensitive subject, you may have, different direction of the message that you receive. And I guess if I want to do science communication on one of these aspects, how it easy, or how can you find a middle ground when you have maybe very extreme message coming from different direction? And what do? You just go there and say, okay, I just give you the facts, you think about it.
Without a concrete example, it's a bit hard to answer that, to be honest.
Let's imagine, for example, alternative methods to animal testing. You can have information coming from someone that is very, very against, and someone that say, yeah, let's do it now. And it's very hard, and it's also an overloading of information at the end of the day. And they are also competing for attention, let's say.
Well, you can try to get on board the story in the sense that you don't create a different narrative, completely different, without, recognizing the existence of the other. But you can, and this is a way that often for your environmental projects, the way to do is to react on what people perceive as obstacles to installation of wind turbines, for example. So you address this when you communicate, even though it's not the focus of your project. You address it so that you're part of the existing narrative, and you bring your own stone to the, to the monuments of the message. I don't see it as a conflict that much. Okay. I see it as how, it's a puzzle.
Okay, you think like you can build yourself on top of the discussion. Let's say you just use it as a building brick.
Yes, and often if you see something really stupid on your field, you will want to communicate about it. You will not want to just start a completely new narrative that you think is the right one. You will explain in a very positive way with facts. Facts are very important, and a clear language why this concerns, or maybe not that important, or maybe they are not so neutral in the way they were presented. Maybe the people behind them, they're not so neutral. Be part of the debate and the discussion, and not opposing two different narratives.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And so, okay, if we said, okay, these are many different difficulties that we can have in communication. So in a way, I guess we answered already, but what would be your recipe to solve it or how you do it
Well,
in general?
on any topic related to animal testing, I will call you, Matteo, definitely. I will call Altertox. No, but
Yeah, better call Altertox, not just me.
yes, I know. It's a team effort. No, again, I think the key message that I would give would be that science communication should be part of the research process. And I'm not inventing this. I've it's been well established in many publications about science communication. And when it's about projects, for example, it means planning well in advance, and that it's part of your delivery. So you know what you will be delivering, you know how you will communicate, you know to whom you want to communicate it to, and you know how you will communicate to these people. And how means the channel, and it means the message, the wording. Again, it's not the same message for everybody. With slightly different words, it's slightly different content too, because you're not going to give the same message to the citizens or to the policymakers because you don't have the same objectives for each of them. So it's really important to strategize very early on so that you can overcome a lot of barriers related to budget, timing, finding the right channels. So anticipating is key. But then, of course, there is a need of capacity building as well on the side of researchers, but on the side of anyone who is managing a research project, even people like me who were never really a scientist before. Capacity buildings to understand maybe new tools. So, you cannot just rely on Twitter, Facebook, and, that's not it. It requires getting to know, to do some mapping maybe of the relevant players in different areas in Europe, finding the right collaborations. But for the researchers themselves, even if they don't work with professionals of science communication themselves, they can definitely overcome a lot of obstacles by getting a bit of training on storytelling, public speaking, and they can go to Pint of Science to train. It's a low-hanging fruit. I mean, it's quite easy, no pressure. On how to pitch their work in one sentence, for example, because sometimes you meet people and you have to communicate quickly on what you do, and one sentence, it has to be enough to pass on the message in a clear way. Simplify, simplify, and disconnecting. I mean, again, it's important to understand that what you do, what to deliver as research is not the same as what to deliver as communication. There has to be a translation somewhere. It has to be translated. It's a different language. And this is a different mindset that you need to have. And this is not rocket science. It's easy to learn and to get practice on that for anyone involved in research.
But do you think a scientist has this in mind already? Or you...
Well, maybe do. Many of them do, and many of them are excellent science communicators, but naturally, some maybe don't have because they lack the training. Maybe they're a bit shy. You can learn. It's a skill that you can learn. Storytelling is not natural to everyone.
And you can also ask to be beyond research. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's what you're there for.
Yes. Absolutely.
And...
but you can ask many other people. I mean, we cannot take over all the needs in science communication.
Maybe we can actually close with some suggestion of something. I mean, here is to read, but I don't know if you have some videos. For example, I recently discovered the videos of science communication that was done by the Johns Hopkins University in the 50s, which I love them. I mean, it's all black and white, white people saying science, and then half an hour of this.
And children smoking cigarettes, or no?
I didn't see that. There are some scientists trying to blowing in the glass. And in the comments I read that someone was saying, okay, now we don't do this because it's very, very dangerous to do it like that. But I love them. I will put it also in the description. But you have some recommendation?
Yeah, no recommendations for movies or videos specifically, because there are many, so it's quite easy to find. But a good read would be, and I'm promoting my colleague Elodie there because she co-wrote a comprehensive guide to science communication. which is, I think, available on the site of Hindawi. But I mean, I can share with you the link. It's called Comprehensive Guide to Science Communication, and it covers a lot of the topics that we've talked about in more details, with concrete examples of different medias and why it's important to communicate in that way, what it means for the scientists. So it's an excellent guide, and I had a look before our talk, actually. It's like a little Bible. So Elodie is very proud of it, and she should be. It's very good.
Good. I will definitely check it.
Yeah,
sounds very comprehensive indeed. Cool, great. Well, I guess we can close it here. Thank you very much for being with me with the chat we had. It was very, very interesting. I hope
it was a pleasure, Matteo.
Found it interesting as well. I guess people can reach you. I mean, we tagged you everywhere, so they know where you are, at least on LinkedIn and Twitter. So if they have some question about...
They don't know where I live, right? You
I have no idea. Maybe there we put it somewhere, but maybe we'll remove it. But yes, if you are available for any further question, would be really nice.
Of course.
And the same with us. I mean, you can connect with us on Facebook. We can connect with on LinkedIn. You can check our website. We are pretty much everywhere on our social media, so it should be easier to find us. And you can give us comment on how to improve the show, because we are going to be back in 2 weeks. This time we're going to talk about NAMS, so with alternative methods to animal testing. So no more Guillaume. There's going to be some other guest. But thank you very much again for being here. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.